again, and then what was happening was they were getting upset because he would open them and then he wouldn't do anything more. So he wasn't having sex with them, but he was kind of playing with the energy, like a tease a little bit. So he was doing the tease factor here, which is not always the best thing to do either, because it kind of hurts people at times. Okay, any other questions on this one? Okay, so then you've got the Hanged Man card. So notice again, I told you before that, it's the 4 in reverse. So this is the card again that is about the crucifixion of the Knights Templar by the Pope. So notice you've got the Ankh at the top. That is a religious symbol. So it's a religious symbol, a Christian symbol. And what's tying him to the Ankh is a snake. And a snake again represents sexuality. So the rope is actually a snake. So religion is using the perception of sexuality as the way to torture or create restriction or to cause suffering. Okay, so unfortunately, again, when I was raised Catholic, you'd have all these priests, saying hellfire and damnation, and you're damned to hell, and you were born in sin, and you'll die in sin. And I was like, wow, this sounds really bad. Why would I want to be on the planet if that was the case, right? So that's that whole thing, like, you were born in sin, that's sexuality. You will die in sin, that's sexuality. I'm like, oh, but that's that belief that religion uses, because I had a teacher of mine say to me years ago that religions learned something a long time ago. If you can control someone's sexual energy, you can control the person. And so then you put them in a little box, tie them with a little ribbon, and you can pick them up and move them around. Okay, but what you can't control is wildness, which is the lust card. So you can't control wildness. It erupts all over the place. So what's important is to know you have a wild instinct on the inside, to give it some free rein, to let it go running, or to be super creative, or sing, or let that wildness out in constructive, beautiful ways. And because if you don't let it out, it will undermine you and do something you don't like later. Okay, like you have to let it out. But so here's this thing, like, you let your passion out, which is the lust card, and now all of a sudden you're feeling bad. Like somebody tells you should feel bad. It's like, oh, that's bad. You can't do that. So notice that there's a whole bunch of boxes and lines and boxes and lines, and so the boxes and lines represent restriction. And there's some sort of restriction going on here, and there's an entrapment. So again, this is one of the cards that Aleister Crowley, again, didn't have as an astrological sign. And so if you turn to page 42, this is Pluto. So he didn't have Pluto in this mix. So, so this is actually Pluto. And Pluto is about death, rebirth, transformation, and karma. So here's this transformation of the karma through suffering. So what does religion do? It says Jesus suffered and died on the cross and therefore was redeemed. Okay? So there's a Christian belief that says you have to suffer in order to be redeemed. Now, the Buddhists, and again, talk about life is suffering. It's one of the great noble truths that life is suffering. And honestly, I think most people are suffering. I think most people are suffering, but I think suffering is also a choice. So that you can actually take a situation that's really challenging and you can suffer through it and make yourself miserable, or you can try and see and have some illumination about it. And that's what this card is trying to do. Now, right now, this card happens to be suffering. So the snakes at the bottom are called the snakes of wisdom, and they are laying coiled and sleeping, which means when you believe that life is suffering and you're damned to hell and you're gloom and doom and all this, you let go of your own wisdom. You let go of your own innate wisdom inside. So here is this guy, and his head is bald, and I like to think of it as somebody's cut off his hair. So who got their hair cut off?
Samson.
So what happened when they did that?
Lost all the strength.
Which was this card before, right? So the strength card is the card before. Okay, so what happens is that you had the strength, you had this life force and passion, and you're like really enthusiastic about it. And did you ever notice that societies, people, your family, all of a sudden say, bad, 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 wrong, 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 you can't do that. And they strip you of your wisdom, they strip you of your passion, and then all of a sudden you're suffering again. Like you're stuck in suffering because you've actually let go of your own innate knowingness. So there's conscious knowingness, but there's also life force knowingness, and we have a tendency to invalidate life force knowingness. And your body has a wisdom into itself. You know, I mean, there is a wisdom in the body. There's a wisdom in passion. It's more chaotic by nature, and it's messy. It's completely messy. But look at nature. She's really messy. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like one of the most beautiful places in the world is Hawaii. It's absolutely pure feminine energy. It's an island in the middle of the great ocean, right? It's as feminine as it gets. But we consider it feminine because it's wild. So there's volcanoes, and there's tsunamis, and there's flowers, and beautiful things, and waterfalls, and there's big giant waves, and there's sharks. And I mean, so it's all this chaotic energy that's unpredictable that you have to just flow with it. And yet there's method to the feminine madness, that deep watery flow. So, you know, but there's that place where our cognitive side says, oh no, passion's bad. Oh no, life force is bad. Oh no, you know, you have to control nature. You know, you have to control nature. I'm like, well, good luck with that one, right? You know, because she's gonna do her own thing, whether you like it or not. You know, so you can try and predict earthquakes. You're still gonna make a mistake. You're gonna try and predict where that hurricane's gonna land, and you're still gonna make a mistake, right? Because you can't tell nature to stop raining. You have to deal with the fact that it's raining, okay? And so with the Hanged card, it's like you will suffer if you believe that you can control life force energy. If you think some way you can control your life force energy, you are going to constrict and be very stuck and suffer, and you are letting go of your body wisdom that has another awareness, okay? Because there is a way to flow with chaos, but it's sometimes a little tricky to find. So I loved learning this one from the standpoint of dance, because being a ballet dancer, I mean, it happened to me multiple times, but this one particular time, I mean, I'm passionately, you know, dancing on a stage, and it's a performance and everything like this, and chaos happens. And so, you know, what happened is, like, you know, I hit the tape, you know, that creates the floor, and I hit the tape, and I literally fell completely back on my back. And I was running, and I was so in the flow of it that I literally fell completely on my back, and I did one of those kung fu moves that I was standing. I don't know how I did that. Don't ask me to do it. I mean, I don't know how I did it, right? But I was in the flow of the feminine chaos, and I was doing a role that was a woman going crazy. And so I literally slipped, fell on my back, ended up standing on my feet in one fell swoop, and kept dancing. And people came up to me and said, that was the most amazing move. I've never seen any ballerina do that move. And I was like, yeah, pretty good, huh? You know, I mean, because I don't know how I did it either. I mean, but there's
they want it every time.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so there's a chaotic flow if you flow with it, if you don't judge it, okay? So the problem is if you judge something as bad and wrong, which is the Hanged card, you know, because somebody else told you, like religion told you that these rules are bad and wrong, then you're going to get yourself stuck, like trapped, instead of in the flow. And there is a flow in life force, there is a flow in chaos, but it's a little unnerving. You know, it's a little unnerving at times. And sometimes you don't know where you're going to end up. Okay, but there's a trust in that. So, if somebody gets the Hanged card, they are suffering, or they're allowing their mind to make them suffer because they're not following life force flow, and or they're letting their beliefs from the past limit them in some way. I'm going to turn the hair down. Let's see if it rounds out. Okay. So, then when you got yourself stuck in suffering long enough, did you have a question?
Well,
Yeah, okay, you looked like you were just about to, had an idea in there. Okay. Okay, so again, so if we back up, the Hermit card is the first dark card. And even though the Lust card looks like a dark card, it's just life force energy. It's just feminine life force energy. It's, you know, chaotic sexual energy. And it's not necessarily a bad card. You can make it into a bad card, but it's not. But the Hangman card is another dark card. So the Hangman card is another dark card because, you know, because of limiting your flow, you will get yourself stuck and compressed. And sometimes people need to do this. So like I talked to a woman the other day that she said that her sister or something, I can't remember, kind of must have been like a borderline schizophrenic or something, but as a teenager she was hearing voices to have her kill her parents. So she became a born-again Christian. So that did work for her. Okay, so that completely did work for her. So notice, restricted her. These are the rules. Boom, like this. No chaos whatsoever. So ironically for her, this was the right choice because obviously letting that voice take over or going into restriction, which is the better choice, this is the better choice. So learning some restriction and learning not to create suffering on others is the better choice. Okay, but there's more to it because eventually you also have to break out of the rules and regulations in your mind to find your authentic moral rule compass for yourself. So you have to let other people stop defining your rules and you must find your own rules and take responsibility for them. But she's there and it's safe for her, and honestly that might be the best choice for the rest of her life. Okay, all right. So then we go to the Death card. Okay, so the Death card is the next card. So, you know, again, I said before, the Death card is not necessarily death. It's ego death, death of identity, death of old way of being, but people freak out when they see the Death card. So, and I'm always explaining that. This is the Angel of Death, but if you look at him, he's kind of doing this weird thing. So he's got a scythe, okay, so he's cutting the souls away from the body, just like you cut wheat from the chaff. So he's cutting the souls out of the bodies and releasing them, and they're going up this line into heaven. It starts to look like a weird musical instrument that he's playing. Okay, so he's playing this weird musical instrument where the energy is flowing up. He's got a eagle over the top of his head, which says that he actually has pretty clear vision. He actually has pretty clear vision and he knows what he's doing. You've got a bloated fish, which is about death. You've got a dead snake, which is also about death. You've got a scorpion, which is the sign at the bottom, the symbol at the bottom, the M shape is Scorpio. So this card obviously represents Scorpio. Then you've got dead flowers and everything going into fecundity. So it's breaking down. So when I look at this card, I love this card because it's sort of like, wow, my spirit's about to be freed up. I'm about to be cut away from my old density, my old physical world, my old material world, my old mental world. Like, I'm about to be freed up. Thank God for the Angel of Death kind of thing. But some people freak out with this card. And so this card, surrounded by some other bad things, can portend death. But it's really about the ego death first. Okay? Sometimes it's death of denial, death of old perceptions, I mean, all of those things.